And we are back here on Metal Nation Radio. I am Rustin Rose from Metalholic Magazine, your host tonight. And you just heard again the lead-off track from the debut album, Now or Never, from Veronica the V. Freeman. You also know her from Benedictum, and she's joining us here tonight.
How are you?
I'm doing good. You know, it's been sort of a Spinal Tap week for me. I don't know what it's been like for you, so...
Well, past few weeks, I mean, Mercury was in retrograde. I don't know if you're all into that stuff, but I'm telling you, it was probably one of the stronger ones, but it was like a really good one. But it just ended on the 11th, so you always get stuff going on the tail end of it. So anything electronic or delays or miscommunication, all that kind of stuff. Trust, it's been full of that. And then just as you were calling, I was trying this new microphone, and it didn't work, so I'm trying to pick the thing up, and then I scared my cat, and then the thing falls over, and now he's mad at me, and oh boy.
Well, other than that, how are you?
Limping around like a wounded animal.
Yeah, I was going to say, I saw something about healing up.
Oh, my God.
What happened?
I had back surgery last week. Yeah, I'm a tough old bird, but it was pretty brutal. They wanted to do a spinal fusion on the lumbar, L4 and L5. I don't even know all that stuff. Bottom line, for the past few months, it's just really been difficult. It's been really rough. So I had started seeing a chiropractor and all that kind of stuff. First, they did those epidurals, the injections into first my hip and then my spine. And the hip part was like, hey, everything was cool. And then the back started to go. And then I really had a flare up when I was in New York. So it's even worse when you're not at home. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I was like stranded on the ground. I couldn't stand. Thank God for Mike LaPond. I mean, I wouldn't know what to do without him. Kind of saved me, made sure I got to the airport okay and all that kind of stuff. And brought me some pain pills to get me home. And then it was kind of like downhill after that. So they had found, to make a long story short, that I had a really bad arthritic flare-up in my back, and I had some long bone spurs on my spine that I never knew were there, and a nerve trunk had been impinged on one of those bone spurs. So if you can imagine, it was like that whole sciatic nerve thing going all the way down my left leg. I was walking with a limp. I had a drop foot. So I didn't have any complete control over my left foot. So you could feel the heel, but the front part of the foot would just slap on the ground. That's what they call it, drop foot, whatever. And it was pretty much hell. So,
but how metal are you, right?
I was. It was rough. The hardest part was, the things that stick with you, because it was pretty intense. I have like marks on my knees and stuff. I look like a third grader from crawling around on the carpet because I couldn't stand. So you learn like to stand for a few seconds and try to cook dinner or whatever and crawl around. And it was awful. Couldn't work. And then I'm like, somebody's got to fix this. And then the place I was going, well, we'll give you ibuprofen, but, to stop the inflammation, that'll help with the pain. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I was up like at 4:00 screaming. It was just awful. I don't ever want to go through that again. It was terrible.
Yeah, my better half went through something very similar at the beginning of the year, and it took a month or more to get her in for surgery. She had to have 2 parts of her spine fused, and it was a very painful and ugly situation. So, but,
wow.
That's part of us old metalheads getting older. That's just the way it is.
I'm trying to tell you. I'm telling you. But it's okay. I'm happy I got a chance. I planned everything out like, okay, I have this much movement. I mean, after things had calmed down, whatever the flare-up is, and that's just it, they couldn't really predict what's going to go on with that. The arthritic part, like most of us when we get older, will have some form of arthritis in our spine. It's just a matter of how much. That's really not a big deal. But I guess my mom had bad arthritis. Both of my brothers had spinal surgery, so it was just kind of like my turn. And I had felt like I've been skating all this time, so it was all good. But at the end of the day, I'm really grateful. I'm grateful I had a chance to go to Europe and stuff for a couple of weeks. I had to do everything very gingerly, but I did it and soldiered through, and then came home. 2 days after I was home, I had the surgery and spent a little over a week, and here we are.
Awesome. Well, I want to talk about the new record, of course, but it's already been waiting a couple of years, so it can wait a few more minutes because...
That's what I'm saying.
As you just said, you just got done over in Europe. You did some touring with the Rods. How did that go? You seem to be having a lot of fun.
I did have a lot of fun, all things considered, and a big shout out to Gary for being my sidekick and like my nursemaid practically. I felt kind of bad, but he's such a sweet person. He made sure that, my doctor said you can go, but you need to be really, really careful. Otherwise, you don't want to end up on the ground. So it was a lot of fun. We went to Belgium and did the I think it was Heavy Sound Festival in Polperinga, and it was a blast. It was different being with a different band. It wasn't even like a band that I knew really well. I had met Gary a few times when he came out here because his parents live out here in Scottsdale.
Right.
So we had a chance to talk, and we had lunch and stuff, and I had played him some of the rough mixes of the solo stuff, and he really liked it, like genuinely liked it, which made me feel really, really good. And you know me, I'm always like, well, hey, if you ever need a guest singer, kind of joking around. And he's all like, we've never done anything like that before. Let me talk to the guys about it. And they were open to it. And I went over there. I was supposed to go over there for just kind of more like a meet and greet thing so we get to know each other. Because it's different when you're traveling together, especially in a different country.
Right.
You're not going to, you're always going to be in cramped quarters and stuff. So you better get along. But my back wouldn't allow it. There was no way I could travel. I was down for the count. So basically I made it out there for a trial run. We did a show in Auburn, New York. And that was cool. Everybody got along. Everybody was cool. I think they still were kind of like, well, who is this? Who's this chick? And then it was on. They were kind enough to say, okay, well, she's got the chops. And then I don't think the other members kind of like knew who I was at all or anything. So once they kind of like looked up my pedigree, so to speak, it was a little bit better. It was cool. And then they were very, very nice to me. And we did have a lot of fun. I just felt like, the odd person out only because I was so physically limited. Right. So people would go for walking down and, like when we were in Lübeck and stuff like that in Germany, that place is so absolutely gorgeous and there's so much to see. I just wasn't strong enough to go, but we soldier on. It was great. It's great fun.
Let's talk about the new stuff, which is really sort of the older stuff. I mean, last time you and I spoke, you had already been sitting on Now or Never for a while.
Had I?
And as a matter of fact, you told me it was going to come out at that time. You told me it was going to come out next summer, which would have been last summer. So
exactly right.
You've been sitting on this for like 2 years. So what's the story?
I'll tell you the story. You really want to know?
Absolutely.
I try not, I'm going to be as diplomatic as possible. So there's no need for anything else but that. But at the time when I had spoken to you about it, so we had done something, I think we must have been talking about the Obey album then, right?
Exactly. It was like fall or early winter of the year before. So.
Right. So at the time I was under the impression and I was told that, okay, the whole premise was we do both albums at the same time, which with my lifestyle and the budget and the setup that we had was probably very unrealistic. It seemed to be a good idea at the time, but then one or the other would suffer trying to get it done in a particular time frame. So that particular plan didn't work out so well. But at the end of the day, when everything was done and turned in, I was told it was going to be a summer release and therefore was told to let everybody else that I spoke to know this as well. And then I don't hear anything else. And so nobody bothered to tell me they changed the release date. Now, when I turned it, it's like, oh, hello, please let me know. When I turned everything in, I still had some changes that I wanted to make. And for musicians that are listening, there's always going to be something you want to do differently. However, it was a little bit more than that. There was a little something missing. And I wanted to be over the moon about it. I wanted to feel really good about my first solo effort. And I just felt that there was some things that I would have liked to have changed, but there were some minor differences, production differences and stuff like that. So when I found out it was going to be delayed, I'm thinking this is fantastic because now I have time to go back and try to make these changes that I want to make. And then one thing led to another, to make a long story short. And therein went this long journey of, well, no, I'm not going to do this, but we can do that. And it was a very convoluted, interesting journey that led me to where we are now and me talking to you. And during that journey, I had the chance to meet with some really cool people that stepped up to help me out. One of them being Kenny Lewis out of Mixed Emotion Studios in Massachusetts. And he was a friend of Michael Sweet. And Michael Sweet had heard some of my stuff and was like, well, we're on the same label. I wouldn't mind working with her, because he had wanted to get more into the production end of things.
Right.
So he made me an offer I could not refuse. And he said, I'll do 2 songs for you. You have to come out here and blah, blah, blah. And that was gnarly because it was like, look, Veronica, I don't have a lot of time. I'm really busy. And usually, you get a copy of it, you sit with it, you learn it. And if you're going to go record it, then you walk in knowing what you're going to do. It was like, you're not going to have that. You're going to come here. By the time you get here, lyrics and music will be done, and you're a pro. You're going to be able to do this. And I was just like, wow, talk about being scared. So I went out there, and I had no idea what the song was going to sound like. And the first time that I heard it, or heard them, I was really blown away. And I was also blown away by the lyrical content, because I had just gone through some emotional stuff that it resonated with me so much, what he was writing about, that I couldn't believe it. I was just floored. And we did the recording, like the rhythm tracks and stuff like that at the Spirit House studio, which was absolutely gorgeous. And then we went to Mixed Emotion Studio to do his tracking and my tracking, and went from there. And then I had also wanted to do this song that I had with Tony Martin. So it gave me an opportunity to fill in the blanks, to make it more in alignment with what my vision for my solo album would have been. And during that process, a lot had to be changed and reworked and all of that. And that's okay. I mean, that's just the way it goes. But it was quite a journey. But it's all almost now like a new animal, and I'm very happy with it.
And I'm loving the album. I was listening to it.
Are you?
Yeah, I was listening to it a little bit earlier, and we just opened up before we got you on the horn here with one of the songs that Michael Sweet was involved with, the first track again. And then the other one, I believe, is Love Should Be to Blame, which has very much, to me, to my ear, a sort of Dio-esque vibe to it. I don't know. That's sort of what I heard when I was sort of listening to the music. I'm like, that sounds like something that Ronnie might have done,
Wow. I never even thought about that. I was so nervous anyway. I wasn't thinking about anything. It's like, oh my God, this guy's a perfectionist. Anybody out there that's worked with them, and Michael, I'll tell you to your face, because, he just called me the other day. I was like so excited to hear from him. But yeah, he gets a vision in his head. You're going to sing it like that, and you're not leaving till you do.
Let's take a quick break here on Metal Nation Radio. We will listen to Love Should Be to Blame, and we'll be back on the flip side with more from Veronica the V. Freeman, talking about her new solo album, Now or Never. Welcome back here to Metalholic Mondays on Metal Nation Radio. Still talking to the incredibly talented and vivacious Veronica the V. Freeman about the new album, Now or Never. Let's back up a little bit and talk about the album overall, because when we talked about it, you said it was more of a traditional hard rock with some elements of 80s comparative to what Benedictum does. But tell now the album is all done and finished. Tell us about the record from your perspective sonically.
I think that's a good question. Because I'm coming from a completely different perspective with it, because it was like giving birth, which most of my albums are. I've never had something that was just simple. I do like the fact that it is reflective of a lot of different styles that I like. There's some stuff that's more poppy, actually. And then there's some stuff I finally get to do, like a ballad type of thing, I don't know if you want to say ballad, but just a softer type of thing. So at the end of the day, I think it is a melodic hard rock album that has some edgier moments and some softer moments. So I think there's a lot there that either you'll really resonate with, or you'll go, oh my God, what the hell is this? That's how I see it. I'm going to buck the system and ask you a question. What do you think? Other than the Michael songs, other than those 2 songs, what other ones do you like or not like, or what is your opinion?
Well, the opening track is my favorite at the moment. But again, after I hear it about 5 or 6 times, that's obviously going to change around and everything. I love the track that you did with Leather, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But there's so many nice things on it. That's That's the one thing that I like about it is there is sort of that diversity to it. It's not all one thing. 'Cause I remember when you were originally telling me about the album, I was expecting one thing when I got it. I'm like, there was a little bit of that, but there was a lot more diversity than I expected.
Yes.
Maybe that has something to do with the fact that you went back and played with it and tweaked it and added some stuff and moved some stuff around. But there are some great songs on here, King for a Day obviously is a fantastic song as well. Spellbound is really a nice one. It's really hard. And of course, when I've only heard it a couple of times, it's really hard to say, this is it, because you really have to live with it for a while. I just wanted it in general, just like you're giving me, because you're helping me get it clear in my head as well, because it was at one time this one thing, and it's kind of hard to explain without going into more detail. But with the original masters that were turned in, I remember I don't want to say having a heavy heart, but just having some misgivings about it, like, I know it could be better. I want it to be heavier or a little more aggressive or a little more reflective of me. I didn't want it to be, let's just water down Benedictum, because that's what the label was very afraid of. This was the first time that I ever had to turn in songs first and get approval. I've never had to do that in my career, which was very difficult for me. But I understand now why they were doing that, because they realized that for all these albums and all these years, I've always had a particular shtick, so to speak. This has been my way of doing it. This is my style. And they know that there's this other part of my voice, and that's what they wanted to get. So that being said, I'm glad it all went about the way it is. And I'm glad that it had to go through the evolving as it did, because then it has these other things. I wanted very much to do that track with Tony. I had that track with Tony back when we released Obey. It was the one I wanted to have on the album, actually. And the label was like, no, we want to do this one, which I loved Cry as well. And I was really happy about that, because Pete had written that and he wrote the lyrics and everything. And so I was hoping to get a chance to use that other song, and we did. So it worked out really well. Yeah, and like I said, a lot more dimension to it than I was expecting, and that's probably the result of you having more time with it to tweak it and play with it. So, sometimes it's a good thing, It's all still very fresh and exciting, so.
And then who knows what you never know what would have happened. So now I'm feeling a lot better about it. I'm getting better physically. Slowly but surely, actually quite quickly when I think about what had happened and everything. So getting ready to go back out and see the Rods again, because I was supposed to be on a plane tomorrow to the UK.
Mm-hmm.
So and then that wasn't going to happen, and now it's still going to happen, but I'm not going to be flying out there until like the 24th or 25th. And then I'm not going to New York next weekend, which will be great, because then I'm going to drive up to Cortland and do Dio Day with them. And that was something I really wanted to do back when we were first discussing me doing any songs with them. So to have it kind of fall out like that was a gift. So I'm looking forward to it.
Nice. We mentioned a moment ago your dear friend Leather.
God, yes.
You did some touring with her last year, if memory serves, and now she's made an appearance, obviously, on this as well. That seemed like a natural thing to have happen, but you guys have been having a lot of fun together.
She is the girl that... She's the friend that your parents would probably not let you hang out with, because they think that she's a bad influence. That's how she and I are. People would probably think on the surface that it would be me, but I am more of the goody two-shoes. And when I get with her, after I first actually met her, oh my God, it was on. I adore her. Not ashamed to say that. I think first, she's a great talent. I think her voice sounds even richer and stronger now than it ever did. And I love her. I mean, when we first met and she stayed at my house, and we were like it was like a frat house thing. I mean, we had wine and craziness and doing radio shows and doing whatever it was we were doing and just being ridiculous. And, she turned me on to a lot of music that I didn't even know about, because I get so caught up in my own life and blah, blah, blah. And she's not afraid to render her opinion on certain things, and on me as well. So, but it's great. She gives me a lot of strength, and during a time when I was going through certain things in my life, she was definitely, probably completely unaware of it, but gave me so much more inner strength than I thought I had. And then to see her do her thing is amazing, and her love of the game, her love of singing, her love of music, it is inspiring. And she's very tenacious, and she'll get out there and she's like a pit bull, man. And I want wonderful things for her because she's very deserving. And the way she sings and her performance, because I look at all those kind of things. She's a great performer, and she's a lot of fun.
Well, I was so excited to see that she was out there doing some stuff with you guys, because I know when I talked with her, she was a little frustrated with the fact that Chastain wasn't going to tour. And it's so exciting just to see her back in the game now after being away for so long, because she is an amazing talent. So
she is. I'd like to be a lot more instrumental in that, especially without going on, because I love to talk. But when you look at the music industry such that it is today, you got to offer more bang for the buck, because there's not a whole lot of buck coming back. So if you truly want to get out and do this thing, I think in order to make it a more appealing thing or to offer a better package, I still want to go back and do that. Even with the new stuff, I would love to do a show, quote unquote, where it's Benedictum music, some of the solo music, some of her new Chastain stuff, some of her old Chastain, and have this extravaganza, so to speak. But, an evening of music with, and maybe even bring another vocalist in there, and we do this thing and we kill it and give people a really good show of a little diversity of music and have some fun with it.
I was really hoping and looking forward to the idea that you guys and A Sound of Thunder were going to do a West Coast tour last year that never quite happened. So,
right.
But I'd love to see all three of you ladies on the same stage together. That would just be a mind-blowing blowout.
It would be fun. My goodness, I absolutely love Nina too. I mean, I've found new sisters throughout this whole thing, and I just was out there, was it last month, to do something on one of their albums. They can turn those albums out. I tell you, it takes me 2 years to do one. They'll do 8 in the time that I do one. But that's great. They've got it like that, and that's awesome. So I had a chance to hook up with her and Josh and did the song "Last in Line" on their cover. They're doing a cover CD.
Right.
So that was awesome. So that was another Dio tie-in. It was very interesting because that was just before I was going to head up to Cortland to do, it was just all these things that were going on at the same time that all had this Dio thread going through. But I very much would like to do something like that where you have, I don't want to like overpush. The female fronted isn't so much the end game as it is to have just some talented people that get along and have fun. Because when you're doing that conveys to the audience. It shows. If you can put a super group together and they may all hate each other, and that shows too, because it may sound okay, but it doesn't have that vibe, at least to me.
You got to have the chemistry, and it's
exactly.
Easy to see. If it's not there, it's palpable.
Exactly.
Well, that seems like a perfect segue to take a break here and listen to your track with Leather Leone, and maybe we'll listen to a track or two that you did with Nina Asagueda from A Sound of Thunder, and we'll be back with more from Veronica the V Freeman here on Metal Nation Radio. Keep it cranked. And we are back once again here on Metal Nation Radio. I'm Rustin Rose, your host from Metalholic Magazine, and we still have the amazing Veronica Freeman here with us, still talking about her new album, Now or Never. And we were just talking a little bit about women in metal, and getting back to that for a moment. Earlier this last year, I had sort of a little internet flare of words with Jill Janis from Huntress.
Oh, really?
Because we were doing our annual top 25 women in hard rock and metal, which if anybody's ever read Metalholic's thing, it says right there in the first paragraph, this isn't about how hot they are. This isn't about who's the best. This is just about those voices, those people who are at the forefront. Because you think about it, women in hard rock and metal, as many as there are now, still represents less than 5% of the genre scene. So,
right.
but some people are getting really bent that stop referring to it as female this and female that.
Right.
It's still a very small demographic, and people are trying to bring attention to it. Certainly there are magazines or radio stations that use it as a gimmick to get more people to it, and they focus on the hotness and whatnot. But, you know, so certainly nobody's going to do the top 25 hottest men in metal. Nobody wants to see Lemmy up there.
Thank you. Well, you don't know that I don't want to. That's the thing. Well, wait a minute. You speak for yourself. I may want to see that. That is, and I don't want to digress because I want to hear about what happened between you and Jill Janis, but because I'm nosy. That's the thing that cracks me up. What'll happen a lot of times will be this is great. You got to check this out. And she's so hot, and it's cool to be hot, you know, and then sometimes you're not. And then it becomes this whole thing. And the next thing you know, it's like, yeah, well, she's this and she's that. And it totally gets off topic. I'm very curious as to what her mindset was.
Well, first, I'll tell you one thing that I've always said. I said, we will find equality in metal when a woman can get up on stage and be sort of the female equivalent of Lemmy or somebody like that. And,
right.
And everybody's still giving them the credibility that they deserve, you know, because it isn't about looks. It is about the talent. The fact that most of the women who are in hard rock and metal happen to be beautiful, that's fantastic, but that's not what it's about, and people need to recognize that. But what happened was when I posted on all the different artists' website that we were doing this, because this is the first year we actually took voting from the fans. And she went on a tirade about how she hates these magazines and stuff that do this sort of thing, pitting women against each other and, you know, and all this sexist bullshit. And understand, I adore Jill Janis. She's a wonderful person, you know, but I was like, wait a minute. Number one, obviously you've never read my thing because I'm very supportive of the whole thing with women in hard rock and metal and getting more exposure. That's really all it's about, and getting that equality. But more important than that, how can you be the spokesperson for saying this is a bad thing when you are out there using your sexuality, verbally acknowledging that you're using it to suck people into what you're doing, and at the same time go on this tirade about how this is sexist and it's pitting women against each other? And it's not even ranked either. It's just, you know, these are the one, you know, it's not numbered. It's just, here's the top 25 we think were important this year. So she posted her thing and I posted a response on the website, and I don't know that she ever saw it or anything, but, you know, that's all it was. It was a sort of a feud she probably didn't even realize she was in.
Right.
But I do adore her, and I love the stuff she's doing with her band and everything. So, but I just found it sort of humorous and a little bit hypocritical that you can say all this stuff when you're out there as sort of the epitome of what it is you're raging against.
Right. I get what you're saying, but I also, it does not to start any controversy, because I'm probably most of my own non-controversial. There's other people that create controversies for me, but I can't say that I don't get it, because when I first started, back when dinosaurs roamed the earth, I remember being asked, because the photos that were taken, you know, a lot of cleavage, and I still study that, you know, whatever. But it's business too. But my thing is, you need to be able to bring it. However, if I'm selling a car, if I'm selling a can of peas, that was the analogy that I used. Am I going to use it? And I have the option to use a plain label, or I have the option to use like a label that may draw you in because the product is good. Now, I'm not selling you a can of the leftover peas or stale peas, but just a can of peas, right? Then naturally you're going to want to go with the label, or, you know, the outer facade, if you will, of something that will be more eye-catching, whether it be through controversy or just straight sexuality or just being a badass or whatever your particular shtick may be. So, but because there is still that ingrained thing, it's like, I'd be the last one to talk. It's like, hey, people know me from my big boobs or whatever, you know, but they know me from my voice too. I think it's kind of like a tongue-in-cheek kind of thing. I don't take it too seriously, but I don't like to see, I don't think it's like pitting them against each other, but I get that mindset that, okay, I don't see so much of that, ooh, the top 25 hottest guy things going on. I see that only happening with women. However, if that draws more attention, to women in general in the business, then, it's the price you pay. You can't have it always all the time.
Yeah.
So,
and I never want to see anything about hottest or this or that. I remember growing up, we used to read magazines, Cream, Circus, every year. They did the top 5 bassists, the top 5 vocalists. Well, back then there was like barely any women in the genre. So now you can actually separate it to give more notice to it and everything.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I like doing. But yeah, I agree with what you're saying. It's not about the packaging and it's not about the sexuality, but it also doesn't have to be, but it may be part of who you are and who your image is.
Absolutely.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
It's part of it. And if you don't need to go down that road or don't choose to go down that road, there's nothing wrong with that either. I always say, as long as you can bring it. I really personally don't care. You could come out in a paper bag, but if you just totally blow me away, then you've blown me away. Because when I'm in my car and I'm playing an MP3 or whatever, I'm watching the road. I'm not watching you. I'm listening to you. And what I'm listening to needs to move me. And I had the pleasure of being on like a chat room thing yesterday, which is the first time I ever did anything like that. And it was based on female fronted bands and stuff. And at first I was like tentative about doing it because I'm like, oh, no. But on the other hand, I made new friends. I listened to new music I hadn't heard. Some stuff absolutely blew me away because it was unique. What bothers me, as it does with it is not a male or female thing, as it does with music in general, is when you have songs and bands to where if you were to play them back to back, you'd think it was all on the same album because It all sounds the same. It's the same formula. Singer sounds the same. Music sounds the same. To me, that's boring. But that's me. Other people, that's fine. But when you can't differentiate one band from another because it has the exact same tonality and same everything, I like to hear something that's a little more unique. I like to, to go there with that. And that was really cool. I heard, was it Infernal Opera and some other really cool stuff. I was like, damn, this shit kicks ass. So that was a good thing. And I was first tentative about it, but it wasn't until I got in the middle of it and I saw how many people were so supportive of it. So some of that stuff is my own stuff. I'm not speaking for her. I'll speak for some of that stuff is my own stuff. Like, okay, it's maybe a wall that I have about it, but at the end of the day, just bring it. As long as it's good, it's happening.
Well, and we can't be disingenuous. You look back to the hair metal 80s and they were using their sexuality, androgynous as a lot of it was, to sort of sell what they were doing because it was as much image. Rock and roll and heavy metal has long been about image. Obviously, when grunge came out, it sort of got less about image and more about the music because we were, trying to be more serious then. But part of that whole fun thing with rock and roll has been the image and the showmanship and and people just sort of lose sight of that. But yes, I definitely agree. The whole hottest thing has got to go, and it's disturbing when I see.
Let me tell you, there's nothing wrong with being hot. If someone thinks you're hot, I'll be the first one to go, gee, thank you. If they think, and some people think I'm not, and that's fine too. But I'm not going to lie about it. Would I rather somebody think that? Yeah, but I'm kind of like real like that anyway, because that's just my personality. It's like, oh, well, that's great. But if not, that's cool too. I just having as much fun with it as I can. I sure wish that all of us were making more money. That would be nice.
Definitely.
I wish it wasn't such an arduous task to break even, when it's difficult.
It really is, and I'm thrilled that so many bands, and you use Kickstarter this time for part of what you did. Sound of Thunder uses it all the time. These bands are having success with it, and that's great because that's the only way we're going to keep this stuff alive. Because obviously, too many people are stealing it. It's hard to make a living doing it, But finishing up what we were just talking about is one of the people that I really admire as a voice for all this has been Lizzie Hale of Hailstorm. And she's very vocal about the fact that, she's a beautiful, sexy, vivacious woman. And that's just part of who she is as part of the package of what she does. And she said the other day in one of her interviews, she said, we need to see these rock stars step up and show more man titty. Come on, boys.
Exactly.
Stop taking it all so goddamn seriously.
Seriously. Thank you. Oh, God, I love that. For real, though.
Well, since it's all about the music, this seems like a great time to jump back into some tunage right here on Metal Nation Radio. We'll be back on the flip side to wrap it up with our dear friend, the V, Veronica Freeman of Benedictum. So keep it rocked and loaded right here on Metal Nation Radio.